Again, Prime Minister Erdogan urged Colonel Gaddafi to leave and pave the way for a peaceful transition in Libya. We also called for an end to violence and attacks against civilians in Benghazi, Tripoli, Misurata, and other Libyan cities. We have been in touch with opposition groups and recognized the Transitional National Council as the legitimate interlocutor. Our message to the Council was unambiguous. It is of utmost importance that their struggle leads to an outcome that embraces all Libyans. On Libya, Turkey fully supports the UN Security Council Resolution 1970, which condemns the use of lethal force by Muammar Gaddafi's regime against the protesters, as well as the Resolution 1973, which calls for an immediate ceasefire and authorized the establishment of a no-fly zone over Libya. We have been at the forefront of the discussions within NATO. We continue to play a vital role together with the United States and other international actors to bring an end to violence and a lasting solution that all Libyans will embrace. As part of these efforts, our government will host the 4th meeting of the contact group in Turkey. Meanwhile, from the early days of the crisis to the time when we had to evacuate our embassy in Tripoli, we worked day and night for the release of captive US journalists in Libya, and we were happy to have played a role in securing a return to the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, our message to the Syrian government was no different. We stressed the need for equality, freedom, justice, and democracy, and that these are legitimate rights for everyone. To postpone, delay, or worse, to ignore them would lead to dead ends. Prime Minister Erdogan and Foreign Minister Davutoglu are in constant contact with their counterparts. They do not hesitate to give frank and sometimes bitter messages to the Syrian leadership. Turkey and Syria, they moved their relationship significantly over the last decade. Trade is booming, visas were lifted, people-to-people contacts have increased dramatically. We have always acted in good faith in our policies towards our neighbor. We do not want to see deterioration of this important relationship. However, we do not want to see bloodshed, tears, and oppression in our neighborhood. We cannot condone or ignore the use of force against civilians. The loss of life and sufferings of the civilians. That is why we will continue to urge Syrian regime to take the right decisions. We will continue to support reforms and democracy. In the meantime, we will continue to extend our helping hand to our Syrian brothers who seek refuge in Turkey. We sincerely hope that the Syrian government meets the expectations of its own people and that these historical developments create an opportunity to make Syria prosperous and peaceful. In the meantime, we will also continue our efforts to bring peaceful solutions to the conflicts in the Middle East, be it Israeli-Palestinian or Israeli-Syrian ones, as well as intra-Palestinian disputes, which we see as an essential component of regional peace and stability. Here, I should stress the vital importance that Israel could and should play. No one can deny the central role of Arab-Israeli conflict in the future course of events in the region. In these testing times of history, Israeli government should act in utmost restraint, and in irresponsible actions by Israel could well turn the tide of events. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, while the world is changing rapidly, it is not acceptable for governments to oppress their peoples. Freedom and democracy are indispensable for the peoples of other countries as much as they are for our own people. Regardless of their religious or sectarian differences, our Arab brothers deserve the same fundamental rights and freedoms that we have been enjoying. In fact, we consider the fundamental changes in the region as a normalization. For decades, our Arab brothers have lived with hardships in an abnormal regional and international setting. Now, the events have begun to follow their natural course. It is incumbent upon Turkey, maybe more than many other regional and international actors, to do its utmost to help its brothers and neighbors to find the way without violence. We cannot shy away from this huge responsibility because history, geography, and familial ties, among others, compel us to take responsibility. The price of instability, chaos, and violence will be high for us. External forces cannot and do not drive the tide of change in the Middle East. Perhaps for the first time in their history, the people of these nations are determining their own future for themselves. This time, change is coming from within. For us, this is the fundamental tenet of the recent developments. During the initial days of the public unrest in Egypt and Tunisia, we did not see any anti-West protests or angry people burning US flags. The people control this process. And it's vital that we do not take steps that will undermine this local ownership by the people. Local ownership is vital for the long-term success of this transformation. Ad hoc military operations or social engineering attempts run the risk of being perceived as Western interventions and could turn the larger masses against outside powers. Ladies and gentlemen, the road to democracy has always been long and painful. As Americans, you know this well. As Turks, we too know this very well. Our country is always trying to attain higher levels of democratic standards. But let us not forget that there is no room for instant coffee approaches. Every country has its own characteristics, hence unique path to peace and stability. Turkey is eager to help its brothers and neighbors in this challenging quest. As a matter of fact, by setting an example and by being a source of inspiration to millions in the region, Turkey is already playing a vital role in that regard.